And welcome, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider Preview Edition, Early Signing Period Edition. And we have some special things in the works for the early signing period. So special announcement coming. We're gonna have some special signing day, special Wednesday in store. We're putting some finishing touches on what our signing day is going to look like. So stay tuned for that. Got some little kitties, there's some little kiddos kind of hopping around back there. So forgive me if they kind of hop in, but we'll tell you what we have in store on Wednesday. We try to do something more special every year as far as the coverage is concerned. This year is going to be more special than ever, right? So we'll keep you posted on that. Want to say, give a hearty welcome to the best crew in the land, starting with Steve. Steve, it looks like you're in the movement, Oracle. I mean, this seems like a little message there that you have going on. Good afternoon, Steve. How are you?
Good. Recovered from post game on Saturday. Uh, Ready to get back at it. Yeah, no, I just just trying to show some support here.
I hear that.
So yeah, love the Oracle.
I hear that. I hear that. Shout out to Champion Circle, by the way. Who when we talk about this recruiting class, you can't talk about this recruiting class without the folks at Champion Circle. So shout out to them. We will get to that a little bit later. And then, of course, Mr. Brice Marich, how are you?
What's up? Doing good. I'm excited, man. This class keeps growing, and I mean, if you had told me before the year Michigan was going to be 7-5, but have their best recruiting class in the past how many years, I probably won't believe you. But
All
here we
right.
are.
Well, I got to start out with our show talking about our great sponsors here on the Michigan Recruiting Insider so we can get going on the show. This show would not be possible without the ones who make us go and grow. Starting off first with you see this jacket I have on right now, brought to you by our friends over at Wolverine. And so I'm rocking this jacket from Wolverine right now. This special offering is the men's Wolverine University of Michigan Overman hooded canvas shirt jack. I rocked this at the Northwestern game. Now, normally you don't wear branded gear, but I had to rock it. It was the last game of the season. And I said, hey, man, why not? Why not go ahead and do as they do? It was a little chilly outside. And, it kept me warm. So when it comes to representing the blue collar offerings of the Wolverine gear, this is what many of the Wolverines, the current Wolverines, do. They support Michigan NIL, the Wolverine brand. As you see there, many of the current Wolverines have NIL deals with the Wolverine brand, the Wolverine boots. You can get your Wolverine gear at wolverine.com. And right now, if you're doing your holiday shopping, they have 40% off their Cyber Monday deals, 40% off almost everything right now over at wolverine.com. So go ahead, check them out. I'm going to put it up on the screen so you can check them out for yourself and take advantage of the many opportunities that you have over at Wolverine right now and see for yourself everything that they have going on at Wolverine. I'm going to put them on the screen. You can check it out. They have many of the guys on the team that have deals with them currently as I put them up and you can see. Normally, my producer Ben is with us, but Ben is out today. So I'm working double duty and pulling it out for you guys as I put it up on the screen so you can see for yourself with the overlays, and you can see up on the screen. And I'm gonna put it up there for all of you to see over there right now. And we can make it happen, Captain. And where is Ben when I need him? All right. At any rate, you see the different blue collar efforts from our friends over at Wolverine Boots. And you see them right now. You got You got Colston, you got Donovan. Hope Donovan is back and okay. Will Johnson, all the different guys over there. Also helping out with us here is our other sponsor, Passes. Now, Passes is the official NIL partner of the University of Michigan. If you were not aware, they have that 7-figure deal for 7 years with the University of Michigan, where they are going to be around as a platform that will allow Michigan student athletes to not only present their brands, but also to present their content creation opportunities as well. So as they come and they have their different content, they'll be able to use and leverage the platform and the Block M in ways that they never were able to do before. And so advertising opportunities to, if they want to go out and whether it's opportunities like Wolverine or other brands and advertise in ways that they were never able to do before, Passes will allow them the opportunity to do that. A proud sponsor now of the Recruiting Insider. So glad to have Passes on with us here at the Recruiting Insider. And fellas, listen, going to be a big day coming up on Wednesday. And one of the guys that's going to be in that class, Brice and Steve, a guy that Lamar Morgan had worked on from the very onset of his time here on staff, a young man out of the state of North Carolina, a young man that we've been talking to for a long time, and a young man that from the time that you got in the fold, Bryce Underwood, you knew he was going to jump back on, and that young man, Bryce, was Jordan Young.
Solid players. A 4-star composite top 150 player overall. He had over 30 offers. And this is a recruitment that Michigan, at one point, I felt really good about. He took that trip up for the Michigan State game. Things were kind of trending pretty well. But there was always a sense of him staying closer to home, right? Clemson, North Carolina State. It just seemed at the time like he wanted to stay closer to home. But props, like you mentioned, to Lamar Morgan, who just kept chipping away, kept working away. And Michigan had a couple feathers in their cap. You mentioned Bryce Underwood. That was a big-time commitment. That kind of made him look at Michigan a little more strongly. But Elijah Dotson, what a lot of people don't know, he played with him in the OT7s, which is like a 7-on-7 thing in the summer with Cali Power. And that was something that they really connected with. He met him up for the Michigan State game. They both kind of reunited there. And that was another connection that kind of propelled Michigan and sent them up the leaderboard. And I, watching again Jordan Young's film, and I joked about this to you guys before we even got on here, he could play wideout. Like, he seriously could play wideout, in my opinion. I know he's going to be DB for Michigan. He's probably going to be a safety. But 6 foot, 185 pounds. He's played both ways for Monroe and North Carolina. Talented prospect. He kind of reminds me just a versatile Swiss Army knife player. I mean, you can play him in so many spots. I love his film. Rangy guy. He's got great ball skills. He can flip his hips. There's a lot to like about this prospect. And overall, again, Lamar Morgan, the DB class he's compiling right now might be one of the best I've seen. And there's potential it might not even be done because there's another guy, and I'm not going to mention his name quite yet. I'll let Sam talk about him a little later, that Elijah Dotson and Jordan Young also played with Cali Power with. So excellent pickup. And this just bolsters this top 10 class.
Yeah, Jordan Young, you go back to the beginning, Steve. You talk about the guys that Lamar had been very persistent with. There are guys that you look at the rankings and you can tell who the analysts like, and it wasn't consistent with the rankings. When you talk about his level of persistence, he was way higher on Jordan Young than the rankings. This was always one of Lamar's top guys.
Yeah, I think I think Michigan Lamar would probably rank Jordan Young closer to where he was ranked before, because he was like a top 150 type prospect earlier in the process. He fell a little bit, but again, I mean, to be fair, at least from my standpoint, North Carolina, not a state that a lot of analysts are going out to watch guys live and stuff, right? So don't read too much into that. I also think Young could end up being the nickel in this class too. Like Brice said, though, he's a versatile kid, so there's a few, and that's kind of the thing. You know, it's like, does this affect this guy or this guy? It's like, I don't know. There's a few guys in that defensive back class that could play a few different positions. So not necessarily thinking about that right now. That's a get him on campus, figure it out later type deal. But yeah, impressive for Michigan to overcome the distance factor, because that was, I mean, his top three, even the first time when he committed to Clemson, was Clemson, NC State, and Michigan. And a lot of people were picking him to NC State because that was even closer than Clemson was. I mean, so there were crystal balls in for him to NC State around the first time he was going to commit. So, like you said, Sam, persistence paid off here. It's always clear, yeah, when there is continued persistence. That's how much Michigan. There are kids that commit to other schools all the time that Michigan was recruiting, and then it's like, all right, see ya. When they keep going on a kid like this, especially when there is a concrete factor like distance going against them, that really means a lot, I think, about how they feel about a kid. So yeah, no, another nice pickup, and yeah, this defensive backfield class is elite, versatile, just yeah.
Yeah, man. And he, you think about it. First of all, his game. When you talk about Jordan Young, he is very similar. I mentioned this on my show this morning on the radio show. He is very similar to me to Rod Moore. Recruitment wise, I think he's better than his ranking, much like Rod. Physically, when you look at his size profile, his speed and athleticism and versatility, very much like Rod, a guy, when you look at how rangy he is, his ability to cover down on slots, I think he's going to be a lot like that. So a guy who's going to be a safety, can be a nickel. I think that's how he's gonna slot and be seen by Lamar. So I very much in the mold of a Rod Moore, and I think that's why he was so coveted. Why he kind of stuck with him and recruited him all the way to the bell. I think, all the way up until the time he committed to Clemson, I think there was a lot of confidence that I think he very close to thinking he got him. I think distance, the very end of the day, I think distance was the only thing that kind of tipped the scales in the balance of Clemson. And I think that's probably why, at the end of the day, it's like probably why he stuck with it. That's probably why Lamar stuck with it. It's like, you know what? If distance is all it is, come on, man. Don't let that be why. Don't let that be why. You're gonna go to the NFL one day, right? I mean, don't let distance be the reason why, right? So kept knocking on that door. And then, so before the Northwestern game was when I got the word that he flipped him. But it had to be kept under wraps, right? Had to be kept under wraps. Somehow, some way, whether it was through the class and other kids recruiting him, or through leaks, or who knows how it started to leak out, right? But it started to leak out, and word made its way over to the ranks of On 3 somehow, some way, right? And they put it out there. Bonehead Holland put it out there, right? And so he did what he does. He did what clout chasers do. He chased clout. So he puts it out there, blows the kid spot up. And so now, at that point, you have Lamar has to work double time. He has to go out and he has to work. He has to work to reclaim, or he has to work to protect the commitment. Okay? So he works to protect the commitment. And he's able to salvage that commitment. Stop stalling on me. Stop stalling on me. Don't stall on me at this time. So he protects the commitment and he keeps it in the fold. And good for him. That's some great recruiting. Some great recruiting by Lamar Morgan. And kudos to Lamar Morgan for being able to do that, for being able to do it. Because you talk about the class that he was able to put together. But in this particular recruitment, to be able to recruit him once, recruit him twice, basically, because you got to pull him from Clemson, and then recruit him 3 times, in essence, because the third time is now you got to keep him. That's some outstanding recruiting. But this wound up being like the third time, or basically the second time in a couple weeks that they had to protect or salvage a recruitment from Holland's dumbass. All right, so do this for me, fellas. Talk about Jordan Young's game real quick, so I can refresh my feed, because I got to finish my thought. I'm gonna refresh my feed. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna finish my thought. So I'm gonna go to 2 box on y'all. And I'm gonna come back. So I'm gonna put it on 2 box, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna finish my thoughts. So I'm gonna put you on 2 box real quick. You guys talk about Jordan Young's game. Give me 2 seconds, and I'm gonna put you guys in the 2 box, and you can do that. And I'll step out, and then you guys continue, and then I'll be back.
Are we in? I guess so. We're in the 2 box.
We're in the 2 box.
So Jordan, with Jordan Young though, another versatility guy. I thought the Rod Moore comparison was good. As you guys remembered, Rod Moore could have played nickel for Michigan as well. He played snaps at nickel early on in his career, right? So definitely the kind of guy I think Michigan, much like Dotson, as far as a guy who could play a few different positions in the defensive backfield, I think Dotson even a little bit more versatile. I don't think Young is going to play corner for Michigan. But either way, kid wanted to commit on his own volition. You're also dealing with Dabo, who's very old school when it comes to this stuff. So it's like, I think they wanted to do it on their own terms or whatever. But, credit to Lamar Morgan for closing. But as far as Young as a player, I don't necessarily view him as an instant impact kind of kid. But again, you're taking 5 or 6 guys in the defensive backfield. Not all of them need to be. I do think he's a second, third year guy who will eventually make an impact. Like I said, we'll see who takes that nickel spot though. There could be some, with Zeke Berry looking so good at cornerback, he's never going back to nickel now. I mean, I think they found something at corner, but so I guess at the same time there is availability at that nickel spot to find a guy. So he'll probably get an opportunity, but either way, not somebody I'm like banging down the door for to play year one like I would be with Shamari Earls at a straight corner position, right? I mean, that's a little bit different. Even Jaden Sanders, I think, has a better chance to see the field at the quarterback position. So I don't know what you saw with him, Brice. Closer to his composite for sure. I thought the precipitous fall was a little bit puzzling, I guess. I mean, it's just, I'm not calling it, but just, that was before he committed to Clemson too. It wasn't was not a Michigan thing, for people out there that think it's that. But yeah.
No, I mean, personally, I see him as a ball of clay. I think he's going to take a little time to mold and sculpt and kind of get to where you want him to be, like you said, Steve. But he's got all the tools, right? He's got the athleticism. He's got the ball skills. He's got the speed. I think he's also got great length. I think he's bigger than the 6 foot listed he is right now. And a thing that really intrigues me too is a multi-sport athlete, right? So he's played basketball. He competes in track and field. I mean, this is a guy that averaged 14.5 points on the hardwood. He does the long jump, he does the triple jump. He's placed in those too. So there's a lot about him measurable wise and off the gridiron that also is very intriguing of him as a prospect as well.
All right, so I'm back, and I see some people got some problems in the or have some problems in the chat. Listen, I can boot anyone who has a problem in the chat. You can leave. You can leave. You don't have to be here. So if you have some issues, you can get rid of them now, or I can get rid of them for you. Because this is real simple. You don't like how we do things, you don't have to be around for how we do things. This is a free service. So that's the great thing about free. Free means free to do things elsewhere, and that means we free to boot your ass out of here. All right? That's how that works. You don't have to be around here. All right? Real simple. So back to what I was saying. The simple fact of the matter is Holland had what almost cost Michigan Jordan Young. And it was such an issue for Lamar, he had to go and fix it. He had to go and fix it. He had to go and fix it with that kid's dad. He had to go and fix it with that kid. You saw the kid went, and you see how he went and immediately put up an Instagram post, just like Brice went up and immediately put up an Instagram post, right? That's not coincidental. They had to go and immediately address it with that kid and his dad. So they're putting out fires because some knucklehead is clout chasing all the damn time, causing them problems. So at that point, newsflash, Jerome says, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. If we got anybody in here that's talking to him about any sensitive internal business, y'all gonna have some problems. Y'all need to none of that. Any internal communications with him is over. No communications with him. Period. It's over. So I am so confident in what I'm saying that I'm saying it on camera. He's talking about, I'm going to sue you. Sue me. Sue me. See, because you know what the defense against a lawsuit is? It's the truth. I know what I'm saying is the truth. The head coach said, nah, nobody in my office talk to him because he's a problem, because he harms what we're doing around here. I know what I'm saying is the truth. So this is not just me up here saying he's a problem. This is the head coach telling his staff, this dude is a problem. So forget what I'm saying about the back and forth here. This is him saying, hey, we got a problem out here for us in our program is that dude over there at On 3. Period.
Damn.
And that's in response to a lot of his coaches saying, hey, man, hey, we got to do something about this dude. Now, you want me to on signing day get some of the coaches to talk about? I mean, I will. Because, see, they keep testing me. So I'm just telling you what I know. You think that I'm just saying he's a problem. I'm saying they're saying he's a problem. Clearly, they're saying he's a problem. To the point where the head coach addressed it. So there you go. How's that for some intel? Now, moving on to the next thing. I mean, was that not entertaining? Was that not entertaining? It was a little. I thought that was a little entertaining. He was trying to test me.
Oh my God.
I have no problem. Look, I tried to address the dude in person, off camera, and he's like, okay, I have no problem embarrassing you in public. I'm going to take it to you every time. Every time. All right. Next thing. So DBs, more DBs. So what after Jordan Young? what comes next? Who comes next? Alex Graham, fellas. Alex Graham. See, I love Alex Graham. Huge fan of Alex Graham, but he's committed to Colorado. USC's been pushing. Now, Michigan has been hovering around. It feels like this is one that Michigan has been right there for a long time, but it hasn't happened yet. So this is one that you could easily see happening right down the stretch. But at the same time, fellas, that it hasn't happened yet gives me a little pause. It sort of makes you think that, maybe even if he's a strong lean, there's some reluctance somewhere in his circle. It just sort of feels like that there's something that is kind of holding it back here at the very last minute. Now, what that is anyone's guess, but there's been something holding it back here that has not gotten it over the hump in ways that maybe it was able to get over the hump with, say, like Elijah Dotson.
Yeah, no, I mean, this one's been interesting too, right? Yeah, because much like, I don't know, did Allen flip his, or is it still on Colorado?
I think he flipped it.
Right? I mean, so this is another one that's been a little, well, like we just talked about Jordan Young, right? Felt good about him after the Michigan State game when he was up. Then he decided to stay closer to home. Graham's been committed to Colorado forever, but yeah, he's also been seriously entertaining USC, who has had one of the weirdest recruiting cycles I think I can ever remember a major program having. They're like losing guys and getting guys. It's very bizarre. Either way, though, my thought is I think Michigan beats USC for a kid they really want right now if they really decide to push. So, yeah. What's holding Michigan back here? I don't know. There could be some other guys in the fold still, possibly. I mean, there's just a lot of possibilities. We know how much different recruiting has already become in the last 3 or 4 months. Not just Michigan, just nationally. Like, it's a totally different cycle than it used to be. But yeah, Graham, another guy who, I mean, you talk about a kid who had a good senior year. I know Allen loved what Alex Graham did his senior season, capped it off with a state championship over the weekend. So yeah, no, I mean, however, it feels like if they do take another defensive back, regardless of how they finish, this is going to be this will be maybe the best defensive back haul they've ever gotten on paper.
Yeah, man, I think it's been outstanding so far. I love Alex's versatility. The thing that's so intriguing to me about Alex is, like, he's a guy that you could slide in this class as a corner, and that to me is the piece that I think if you're Lamar, you covet one more corner in this class, and Alex could be that guy. He could be the one more corner in this class, Brice, and he brings you length, he brings you athleticism. I love, like, you watch him for Cass this year. You see him making plays all over the field. You see him making plays at receiver, for instance. One of the things that when you watch Elijah, for instance, that's so intriguing about him. I like the multi-positional guys that show you athleticism all over the field on both sides of the ball, and you see that with Alex. But like I said, very intrigued with what he could potentially bring to them as a corner.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of Alex. I've seen him a couple years in a row now. As a sophomore, then he went down to IMG, came back up to Cass Tech, and leads them to, like Steve said, a state title. Played both ways. Dynamic player. I mean, I love his size, versatility, position flexibility. I mean, he can do it all. And a big plus too, if you can land him, that's just another tip to the cap of keeping a guy home, right? I mean, Michigan's done a great job this cycle of keeping the top players in the state of Michigan to go to the state of Michigan. But as you guys have been talking about, with him not committing and not making that decision, it does leave the door open for others to potentially come in and maybe join this impressive DB class. And one guy I'm personally monitoring is Grayson Littleton.
Oh man.
I mean, this is the guy that came up to campus, and he mentioned him with Jordan Young. He was committed to, he's committed to Clemson. He decommitted because they have a no visit policy. Mm-hmm. He's checking out Michigan, and at the time, Brice was still committed to LSU. And that was a card I think Michigan was hoping, or domino they were hoping would have been fallen somewhat around that time frame. That hadn't happened yet. He takes that trip to Texas. Texas is having a phenomenal year. They're compiling a great recruiting class as well. And lo and behold, he commits to Texas. But now things have kind of changed, right? They haven't filled that last kind of slot in the DB class, Michigan. They now have Bryce Underwood. And I think Grayson, and I might be wrong, but I think he's, gonna take a second look. I don't think he's gonna decommit or anything I'm saying today, but I think his attention is certainly looking at Michigan a little more than he did before Brice. And with Brice in the fold, you can surely expect that he's taking a look at them. And like I mentioned, he played with Jordan Young and Elijah Dotson on Cali Power and OT7s over the summer. So he's very familiar with playing with two guys and the defensive back class at Michigan right now. I mean, those are all feathers in the cap for Michigan. For me, the biggest thing there is if Michigan can there's a couple hurdles they can clear with him, and if you can somehow clear them and land a Grayson Littleton, this DB class instantly becomes not only one of the best in the country, but one of the best I feel like we've ever seen at Michigan, period.
Yeah, I just wouldn't. So if past this prologue, I just, you look at what Lamar did with what he did with Jordan Young, right? I mean, I think that's a perfect example of, you see how his persistence was it just was like, this is a guy that I covet. I'm not going to give up on him. He's just, Shamari Earls was the same way. Like, he just that was a guy he established a relationship with. He really liked. He just didn't quit. And I just, knowing him and how much he liked that guy, I just wouldn't expect him to give up. And just me, I think Grayson Littleton is an absolute baller. And I think he was very close to committing to Michigan on that visit. And I said this before, and I know you were thinking the same thing. And I was told that. I know you were told the same thing, Steve. He was very close to committing to Michigan on that visit. And one of the things that held him back, he was like, I don't know if I'm going to win. Who else are they going to get? And he was one of the guys who was like, hey, I want to see what's going to happen with Brice. Like, he was very clear, like, what's going to happen? Well, now they got Brice. And so until signing day, until he signs, I would recruit that dude. Like, that's just me. And knowing Lamar and just looking at how he recruits, I would expect for that to be the same with him. Just until that dude signs on the dotted line, I'm just pulling that string until I can't pull it anymore, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I think go as far as saying, Sam, that I think the original plan was for him to verbal heading into the visit. It felt like Michigan was, after he decommitted from Clemson. I mean, it felt at that time like it was almost a foregone conclusion. But again, that's the power of a school like Texas is going to the playoff. They might win the SEC. Recruiting's weird, but either way, definitely not a kid. I mean, biggest conversation would end up becoming who's going to end up being the best defensive back out of this class. Like, say they added that to the fold, either guy, Littleton, Graham, whoever. I mean, it'd be a fun conversation looking back to say who ended up being the best player, because you can make a case for any of these guys that are projected to play defensive back. All of them have a shot to be really, really, really good players, right? And yeah, just like Jordan Young, no reason for Michigan to quit on Littleton, especially, knowing now what's changed since he committed, right? I mean, there's just same, and that's kind of mirrors the young recruitment a little bit. Only difference is I don't think distance is really a factor in this recruitment at all. Like, I don't think that's going to be what it is. I think it was more like, hey, Texas and Michigan really came at me. Texas looks like they're in a better position right now as a program. I think I'm just going to make the safe play and go there. Well, now Michigan picks up Bryce Underwood. They beat Ohio State again. You know, Michigan's outlook for kids, for us, we know the game. We know, like, they're, you know, especially after getting Bryce, it's like that's a transcendent type player. But now, like, if you're a recruit, it's like, okay, like, there really still is a super bright future in Ann Arbor. So, you know, that's the kind of kid I feel like, knowing how close he was, that you could still, if you're still work at it, you could convince him to maybe not re-enter the fold, but kind of. I mean, like I said, I mean, we definitely thought he was going to commit to Michigan coming out right after going into the visit and coming out. So, yeah, those are definitely the kids you got to go after because he's a 5-star level type prospect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. His DB coach is a huge Michigan fan too. Huge Michigan fan. Huge Michigan fan. Not that has any sort of sway. But you know, he gets a little Michigan suggestion in his ear. You know, just a little amazing blue hint every now and then. But he's still right now firmly committed to Texas. So we'll see if there's something that the Wolverines can do about that down the stretch, right? Time will tell. But even if they don't, it's a heck of a recruiting haul by Lamar, who's done a special recruiting job as well. I mean, when you consider on the field, no Will Johnson, and I mean, the job that he did with Zeke Berry at corner. I mean, Zeke Berry at corner, Makari Page at nickel. That was special. Makari Page became one of the biggest playmakers on defense once he moved to nickel, and Zeke Berry solidified the corner position when he moved to corner. Give those guys a ton of credit individually for what they did, but you also got to give the coaching a ton of credit as well. I mean, that's big time, man. That's big time, and you got to give Jesse Minter a ton of credit because he came to Sharon because of Jesse. That was Jesse's suggestion. Jesse told Sharon, if I stayed and Klink left, because there was talk that Klink was gonna leave if Jesse stayed, right? You know, Klink was looking around to get a DC job. If Klink had left, he was going to hire Lamar to be Klink's replacement. That's what he told Sharon. Like, that was going to be my guy. That's who I was going to go get. So, I mean, it was a no-brainer for who he was going to suggest. This was the guy. And you can see why. You can see the coaching acumen, outstanding recruiter. Like, he's had guys lined up, man. He's had guys lined up. So that's been a huge plus for Michigan. So let's moving on. Brady Hart, Brice. Got to talk about the losses. Got to talk about the L's too. That was a loss in this class, and one that it's not like it was a surprise. This was a bigger blow though than Carter Smith. I think that from a as far as what we thought he was as a talent, I think we all could agree that we thought that Brady was, as far as a prospect, we thought that Brady was a higher level prospect, even though that he was younger. But he was obviously further away. But the decision to reclassify kind of changed the equation a whole lot. And then Texas A&M comes in and he flips and he decides to go to College Station.
I thought it would have been a perfect bridge between Brice and Brady. that year gap right there, I thought that would have been perfect. But like you said, the moment he decided to reclassify, I felt like the writing was on the wall personally, you know. And I know Texas A&M, they have a young quarterback out there, Marcel Reed, who's phenomenal, I think, quarterback personally. And he can learn behind him. But when you get the number one overall prospect and at quarterback and a guy of his caliber like Bryce Underwood, you were bound to see some, you know, some guys leave, especially like a Carter Smith, and even Brady. And that was one. There was smoke, and when there's smoke, there's usually fire. And when I first heard of the idea of he might reclassify, I was thinking like, I don't think that's good. Now I know Steve's gonna have a different perspective on that, which I think is very interesting. But again, when the moment I heard that, I was like, that's not the greatest. But at the end of the day, Michigan fans should be very happy. You have the number one player in the country in Bryce Underwood, who I think is a generational talent. This is a guy that come in and play, I think, day one. He's that good. And on top of that, too, Sam, you've been saying this for the longest. Michigan is going to get a portal quarterback. It's not like they're going to walk in and Bryce is going to shove open the doors and say, I'm here. Like, they're going to have more reinforcements with Bryce. So I'm not personally worried. I think Brady's going to have a great career at Texas A&M. But at the present time, if you could have told me, I guess, foresight, but Carter Smith 2025, Brady Hart 2026, or Bryce Underwood in 2025, what are you going to take? And for me, I'm taking Bryce, you know.
I mean, that's not even.
So
who's even hesitating?
I'm.
Who's even hesitating with that, Steve?
Yeah.
This is not even a. Who's thinking twice about that?
Well, and not only that, but I mean, still think that they're going to still end up taking a 26 quarterback too, right? They're not going to skip the cycle just because they got Underwood, right? So and like it's it's been mentioned, they're obviously going to take a portal guy. With Brady Hart, yeah, I mean, so my thought was, and I mean, again, not that I thought it would play out that way because it doesn't ever play out that way, but I would have thought reclassifying for him, if he was going to, that Michigan still made the most sense because got to think Michigan is probably going to use Underwood similar to how Jim used JJ, where he's not going to walk in and take the starting job right away, but there's no way you can't mix him in at certain points offensively next year. He's just too talented. He's just too good of a dual threat type guy to not give him. So you got to give him some run at some point next year, right? So, so for Hart, who's young for his grade, let alone reclassifying another year, Bryce is the number one player in the country. A lot of those guys don't stick around for 4 years. He could be out in 3 years. You get Hart a couple of years of development, and just playing the long game here because of the laundry. There's a long list of guys who reclassify, especially at quarterback. The list is not great for guys who it's panned out for. So, I mean, honestly, let's look at Texas with Arch Manning. He's waited, and now he's going to have a chance to stake his claim next year and be a top 5 pick. So, but we all know these guys are competitors, and they also have a lot of people in their ear that are telling them they're the greatest. They're the best thing since sliced bread, all this stuff. So, I mean, I think that's how something like this kind of happens. Hart's a great kid, so I'm obviously pulling for him. I just hope Texas A&M doesn't rush him before he's totally ready. So, Michigan's fine, though.
Yeah, so a lot of questions about first of all, Brady, even if he hadn't reclassified, I thought this was a possibility. I mean, you had to know when you took Bryce. Hell, when they recruited Bryce, it bothered Carter Smith, right? Just the mere fact that they were recruiting him affected him. Landing Bryce, just the prospect of having a guy of that profile, even though I'm not suggesting in the slightest that Brady is afraid of competition, it's just only one guy can play. And with the prospects of, the path being clearer elsewhere, would the prospects of that be more enticing? I could see that being the case. So I always saw this as being the likely scenario, even if he hadn't reclassified, that you were gonna have to sell him on it. That you were gonna have to sell him on the, hey, you know what? Look at Texas. Look at the separation between Quinn Ewers and Arch, and this is how it can work. I even said as much. Like, show him this picture and say, look, it can work this way. Don't just expect for him to see it. You got to sell it. You got to sell it to him, because this is not something that he's just going to get. And so once he reclassified, I'm with you that it was, the handwriting was on the wall. Now I hope that it works out for him. I think he's a very talented young man. I think he's very precocious. So I think the mental part of it, he's going to get. It's the physical part. Most quarterbacks redshirt. I mean, you see these guys like redshirting in junior high, and most guys do it the other way. They wait a year in high school as opposed to speeding it up, right? And so he's doing it totally different than most guys. And I really hope that that whatever plan they put in place for him really works out, because he's a super good kid and deserves everything to work out for him. And I really hope it does for him at A&M. Meanwhile, for Michigan, like you said, they're going to recruit a 26 quarterback. And someone said in the chat, him being a day one starter is in the deal. That is not the case. Him competing to be the day one starter was in the deal. But as I've said, look, we've been on top of this recruitment. You had a lot of pretenders out there acting like they knew about this recruitment and didn't know jack. Clearly, they told you Michigan wasn't on this recruitment. They told you Michigan didn't have a shot in this recruitment. They told you a whole bunch of stuff that made it clear they had no idea what was going on. The conversation was, we're going to go get a portal quarterback to compete. Now, you may beat that portal quarterback. And if you beat him, cool. Maybe that portal quarterback wins and you wind up beating that portal quarterback 3 games into the season or 4 games into the season. Maybe that portal quarterback is the quarterback and is the bridge that allows you to grow into the position, and then you take over down the line. But Michigan is going to go get a portal quarterback. So it won't be a scenario where Brice steps into the equation and it's like, hey, it's got to be you right now, no matter what. So the expectation is for him to compete right away, to compete to be the day one guy. And look, he has the talent and the mental makeup to be the guy, but he won't just be anointed. Now, we were the first ones to mention the name Miller Moss before Miller Moss was benched, before Miller Moss was even thought of as a guy who would enter the portal. Go back and check the tape. And then some random guy goes on Twitter after we talk about it on the message board on one of the shows and said, hey, Michigan could be a player for Miller Moss. No, go back and check the tape. We were talking about it. It's like, hey, this could be a possibility down the line, Michigan and Miller Moss. And we didn't just pull that out of our hats. That was something I had a gut feeling about, Miller Moss. And he was a Michigan recruit back in the day, by the way. He was a guy that was very much on the radar. There was some strong Michigan interest there. And so that would be a very, very intriguing guy to come in and compete, with his interest, assuming for the sake of argument that he had some interest even while he was starting at USC. Assuming for the sake of argument that he put some feelers out. Just assuming. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying, assuming for the sake of argument that he put some feelers out way, way, way back when. Would that interest still be there? now that they have Brice, I mean, that remains to be seen. It remains to be seen if he has interest now, like he had back in high school, for instance. I imagine that would be something that you fill out. But if I'm Michigan, it's not just about who's in the portal now. You know, in this day and age, fellas, and this is something that we talked about on Dropping Dimes, the way that you look at quarterbacks is you just go look at rosters. That's how you do it. You go look at rosters. Forget who's in the portal. Look at rosters and look at who you want to be in the portal. That's how you do it. Period. And then you sort of, whoever has an agent, that's how you figure it out. And so, we'll see. There are some guys that I think are very intriguing. There, for instance, one of the guys we talked about months ago, and then you saw that name popped up. We talked about Mateer from Washington State. I think he's a very intriguing guy. For instance, that's a guy that I would see what I would kind of take the temperature. I would find out things about. I don't know how you even say that, Steve, but I would find things out about him. How do you say that? I would find out who his agent is. That's what I would do. I would find out who his agent is, Steve.
Do some research behind the scenes, right?
Right.
Go to the library, read some book, find some
There you
books,
go.
check some books out. So yeah, no, I mean that's one of those things where it's like it's harder and harder nowadays to, everyone wants to hear names. They want to know who's identity. It's like the list is literally infinite. It's infinite. I mean, you don't know, right? It's like you said, we don't know. They got it. They're gonna do. It's the same thing as having a recruiting board, except nobody's potentially off limits because, like you said, anybody can go. So yeah, I mean, the portal is, and that's the other thing too. Michigan's gonna sign a great recruiting class. They're gonna end up with a really good portal class. I strongly assume as well, right? So I mean, the roster will look different next season. It's one of those deals where like take a spot like the interior defensive line. I think we'll probably see some new guys in those spots next year. We'll see. Like depending, obviously Mason will leave. We'll see about Kenneth Grant. But I think we'll see. Just as an example, wide receiver. Obviously, even though they're gonna sign a good wide receiver class. It's another spot where we fully expect them to reel in some names. So yeah, but no, it really is. It's literally like they're just window shopping, right? Like I think I want that guy. Let's see if he's interested. So it is. It's fascinating.
So receivers, guys, let's jump over to receivers. Been some movement there. Had a crystal ball in for Meadows. There was some talk at one point that he was on the verge of committing, but there are some. I think Michigan has a sort of slot of where they are as far as receivers are concerned, what their slot value is for receivers, and that's where they're going to be. And so that kind of made things fizzle as far as Meadows is concerned. And I don't think that they're going to move past that. So I think that's kind of shifted their thought as far as receivers are concerned. So I know there have been some rumblings, Steve, about some other guys, one of them being Jerome Miles.
Yeah, so Jerome Miles, 5-star, just decommitted from USC. Feel like that was a lot of wish casting on the message board that got taken out of context. Like with none of us. I don't know about you guys. I don't think I've commented on Jerome Miles at all because I don't see it as an option for them right now. I think he's pretty much actually locked in to go to Texas A&M. I mean, he was just on their campus last weekend. They did well with him. Michigan, I don't even remember. I kind of feel like if I recall, like his official visit wasn't necessarily the greatest official visit of all time. Like his interest after he visited kind of dwindled. Like I don't think Michigan made the top 4 before he committed to USC in the first place, right? So no idea where that all originated from, but yeah, not a guy that's going to sign with Michigan at the end of the day.
So I think the where it originated was Brice sort of, put some feelers out, and his circle kind of put some feelers out, because Brice is just recruit.
Sure.
He just
sure.
He just sort of casting a net, right? And I think that sort of got people excited. Like same thing with Taz. That kind of got people excited. Taz was putting stuff out on social media, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Michigan is recruiting them, right?
Yeah.
Jerome Miles, he camped at Michigan, but I think if you talk to people who are at that camp, the best player, not just the best receiver, but the best player at that camp was Andrew Marsh. They will all tell you, like, he lit it up, even with Jerome Miles there. And I think that sort of is etched in the minds of the coaching staff. And they're like, we're kind of set with where we are. And so they never really moved on Miles. But Brice, there was a transfer that they were looking at back at that time that came off the board, but is back on the board, that just made his way back to campus.
So you thought recruiting was fun to follow? Imagine now the transfer portal, which is insane as well. But you're talking about Donovan McCauley. He's an Indiana wideout, big 6'5", 200, and I want to say 10 pounds. He didn't play much this season, but previous years at Indiana, he had great seasons. Big red zone target, mismatch. He's flashed against top teams over his college career. And like you said, Sam, he was on campus Sunday. Buzz coming out of that trip is Michigan feels really good, kind of where they stand with him. And I see him as a potential guy to join that, transfer portal hole. So that's just, one of the guys they're working on, right? Because that's the thing. As much as the buzz has been about Bryce Underwood with high school prospects, there's dudes that are potentially looking in the portal that also want to play with Bryce, right? Because it's like Bryce has been to a lot of 7-on-7s, and he's part of Sound Mind, Sound Body, and he's done a lot over the years. And that intrigues guys because they've worked with him, they've caught footballs from him. And again, why wouldn't you want to play with the number one player in the country, right? So there's a lot of options there. I think Michigan's going to have, I think personally, and this is just my opinion, a bigger board at wideout than some people expect. And again, kudos to Ron Bellamy, who's now the number 2 recruiter in the Big Ten this cycle, right? And right behind him at number 3, Lamar Morgan. And at number 6, Grant Newsome. So Michigan right now has 3 of the top 10 recruiters in the Big Ten on the staff. And that was one thing I wrote on our board is Sharon Moore made it a point with this staff, not only to coach, but be excellent recruiters, right? We talked about one of the reasons if you're not going to play the NIL game, you have to be excellent recruiters. And you're seeing now NIL and those relationships and building all that going hand in hand. And it's really taken off. So I think wide receiver recruiting, I'm a huge fan of the class. You got Jamar Browder, Jacob Washington, Andrew Marsh. You potentially add in Donovan McCauley. And you flip that room. It's going to be interesting to see what Ron can then at that point do with a completely different room. Because he's had guys to work with, but I don't know if he's going to have as much talent as he will next season potentially. You had Roman, you had Cornelius, so he had talent. But now you take it up another level and you raise the floor of that room, and it'll be interesting to see where things go.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're definitely going to be in that portal looking for some proven guys. And I think the opportunity is going to be better for receivers because you got Brice. I think they'll get a portal quarterback. I just don't think receiver. It's just they couldn't get receivers to give them the time of day. They just couldn't give them the time of day last year. Just Deion Burks was like, no. And that's a kid from the state of Michigan. He's like, no, I'm sorry.
Belleville kid.
Yeah. He's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not getting. No way. Wouldn't even give him a sniff.
I'll bet if you check the call logs there were a lot of conversations with receivers in the portal that were less than 5 minutes long.
That's why
right?
To me,
like
that's why to me, outside of the Bryce Underwood recruitment clearly was that's the recruiting job of the that's like epic recruiting job. I know you can't make the head coach a lead recruiter, right? I mean, I would have to assign the lead recruiting. I would have to give it to Sharon, but if you're going to give it to an assistant, it would be Ron. But I had to give it to Sharon. But to me, the best recruiting job of any assistant would be the recruiting job that Ron did with Andrew Marsh. Unbelievable recruiting job. Unbelievable. That he was able to get that kid committed over all the Texas schools, Oregon, Washington, all these schools that throw the ball around the yard, who have, 4 and 5 star quarterbacks committed, Elite 11 quarterbacks committed. And he got that dude committed without a passing offense, without an Elite 11 quarterback. He had him committed, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful tone, but he had him committed when he had Carter Smith at quarterback. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. That is an unbelievable recruiting job. And for all of the slack that he catches from people and how good Andrew Marsh is, he doesn't get enough respect for the recruiting job that is. That's an unbelievable job, guys.
Well, think about, he had Philip Wright, too, who Wright's a guy that just bumped up into a 4-star today, of course. We said it when he committed, but now he's committed to LSU. Anyway, Jacob Washington's had a great senior season. And but yeah, the other thing you add on Andrew Marsh, he's become like one of Michigan's biggest. It's not just they didn't just get him committed. He's flying up to try to help seal the deal with Bryce. Him and his mom, like the whole Marsh clan is like in the boat. So it's we've said that that's been on the board a few times where it's like that's one of the better recruiting jobs, period, that I can remember since I've been doing this. As far as an individual, we're talking about a kid out of Houston, right? Not a place Michigan's ever really won a lot of. I mean, they'll get a guy out there every once in a while, but not a hotbed, not a pipeline type area. Yeah, and goes down as a guy who's been top 100 pretty much the whole cycle, and not only gets him early, but keeps him, and has him as like a guy who's like one of the more active recruiting kids in the class. So yeah, can't say enough about the job that Ron did in that recruitment. And yeah, like you said, Sam, if Sharon would get the primary, if we were allowed to put the head coach as a primary, but as far as the assistants go, Ron is pretty much the guy who runs point with every in-state. He either runs point or he's secondary with every in-state kid, particularly on the east side of the state. So whenever they're doing well in state, he's been a big reason why.
And I want to say thank you to the super chats. Ryan Hull just said, just wanted to log in and say thank you guys for being true to the guys and to the recruits. We appreciate you guys. The boys played great this week, that they did. Want to say thanks to Towns Health Services for the super sticker. Appreciate that. Always appreciate the super chats for coming through. That is big time. That is big time to show your love in that way. We appreciate that. And so, fellas, defensive line recruiting. Some interesting things that we will be getting into. So there is some good news on the horizon. Like Michigan is not done. Like, I do think that, they will have a couple of more, at least a couple of more pieces to the puzzle. Let's see if we can sort of handicap it. A moderate ranked piece, at least one moderate ranked piece, at least one high ranked piece, I would say. We'll get deeper into it over on the MichiganInsider.com a little later. Some intriguing notes in defensive line recruiting that we can get into later over on the MichiganInsider.com as well. Intriguing notes on linebacker recruiting as well. Like that one, I think that one, linebacker recruiting is going to get real interesting, I think, down the stretch. And so you want to get in now. Today is the last day of the 75% off offer. This is the best deal of the year on the MichiganInsider.com. The 75% off annual subscription. That is what, 7 cents a day? So if you haven't taken advantage of the deal, that was the Black Friday deal that they extended through Monday. So if you missed out, you still have about 6 hours to get in on it. I'll grab the link and I'll put it here in the chat before we go, so you can take advantage of it and get in on it now. So we'll be dropping some real big nuggets over on the site here tonight for you to take advantage of here. But guys, defensive line wise, there are a couple of guys that I want to touch on before we left. But Gillian's, for instance, Brice, is one that I know people have been wondering about.
Yeah, Syracuse commit defensive lineman, 6'3", 280. He's been committed to the Qs for quite a while, and they actually just picked up a big win against Miami. But Lou Esposito, the defensive line coach, has done a good job of recruiting him. They offered, I want to say back in October, and they got him up for a trip for the Michigan State game. Things at the time looked pretty promising. He's been, I'd say, very pro-Michigan. If you check his social media accounts, he's been very pro-Michigan, Gillians. But as of now, I don't get the vibe that he's going to end up in Michigan's class, right? Things can change, but as of now, I don't foresee him winding up in this class.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that was one that kind of fizzled. It started out kind of hot, obviously, but I think attention kind of shifted as things heated up with other guys. So I would say that the emphasis sort of shifted as other recruitments sort of heated up. But I would also say that I think that they're still very much in the mix. In the mix is how I would put it, Steve, for Hilson. I wouldn't necessarily call him, the favorite, but in the mix.
Could be, yeah. Javian Hilson, teammates with Brady Hart, actually. What a weird dichotomy that would be if they ended up winning that one. But as you said, Sam, that is one they can win. I believe was committed to, was it Florida State? Was he a Florida State guy that decommitted? I think
so.
He was committed to one of the 3 schools down there. I got to think it's Florida State because the other 2 are still throwing bags. But Mizzou, I think, has emerged as maybe Michigan's biggest competition, probably. He's kind of had a relatively quiet recruitment, after commit, because I think he was committed pretty early too. So, yeah. But talk about, I mean, that'd be a huge one. And again, that's NIL shifting, and it's also still, even with NIL, because Michigan's not the only school that, all these schools are doing it, but this is another benefit when you get the number 1 player in the country. It really is. Like, this stuff matters when it comes to guys who are like, okay, well, if this guy wants to go there, he could have gone anywhere in the country. Not to mention, too, I mean, if you're Michigan, all you got to do is pull up the stats from Saturday for defensive line guys and say, listen, like, we're just continuing to do what Michigan's done, especially at the edge. Well, the edge and defensive tackle, but the edge position, I mean, just open up a box score in the NFL at this point. And I mean, there's so many guys from Michigan who are finding success rushing the quarterback. So, Michigan has a lot of caps or feathers in their cap when it comes to an edge type player. So, yeah, and I mean, I got to assume Brady Hart wasn't like bitter on his way out. So, I mean, he may even have like a positive vibe as far as like with Hilson and Michigan to say, Michigan's still a really good school. I'd give him a look or something like that. But yeah, I mean, Hilson, top 100 type kid. So, yeah, edge is a spot you would think Michigan would be able to close on with somebody pretty darn good.
Yeah, you would think. You would think. So some intriguing guys, intriguing notes on defensive line recruiting that we're going to get into over on the MichiganInsider.com. Getting some questions. Steve, does the deal, does it go for upgrades? Does it work for upgrades? Do you know?
All right. So if you're a monthly subscriber, you're paying full price monthly, you can upgrade for free. I'll post a link on the board because you're already a member, so you'll see it on the board. There'll be an easy link to sign up and upgrade from a full paying monthly to an annual. If you do that, you get to keep your Paramount Plus subscription. 75 anyone who new signups, you get 75% off the annual subscription. You get Paramount Plus at the end of your trial period, right? So we've had a few people on the site have made the mistake of canceling their subscription to get the 75. You don't get Paramount Plus while you're paying 75% off. You don't get to double dip on getting a subscription at 75% off and free Paramount Plus. So monthly upgrades, get the upgrade, and then 75. You're either getting 75% off for your first year, or if you're full pay, you're a full paying member, which a lot of people are around this time of the year because our Black Friday sale is always our best seller. If you re-up at full price, then you get Paramount Plus, which, I mean, and again, not even trying to play salesman, the Paramount Plus perk is legit. I mean, there's continuing to be, like, I'm kind of a dork. I love the new Matlock is awesome. So Matlock was the show I grew up watching, and now, like, they did a reboot with Kathy Bates. It's awesome. I really like it. So
Matlock is a great show, is a good show, but the best show on there is Special Ops Lioness. That is an unbelievable show.
All right.
If you have not watched it, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Check it out. That, to me, worth the Paramount Plus subscription itself. If you like, CIA, Special Forces type stuff, it's like that.
Yellowstone's on Paramount Plus now. I mean, I think that's another big one that people have been, really excited. That show was number one, and they just started it back up again without Kevin Costner, but apparently it's still pretty good. So
yeah, if you're a Taylor Sheridan fan, so he's like, he's like Yellowstone.
He's got like 38 shows.
He's got like all those shows. Yeah, but Lioness is really good. And then he has the new show with Billy Bob Thornton, Landman. That one looks pretty good so far. So yeah, Paramount Plus, if you're so people who are full paying members, they're like, oh man, 75% off for these new people. What do we get? The 75% off folks don't get Paramount Plus. So that's for the full paying subscribers. That is your perk, Paramount Plus, and it is worth it because it is outstanding. It is an outstanding perk in and of itself. But if you don't have a TMI subscription, this is a great way to get in the door for 7 cents per day. What are you waiting for? Because this will get you through signing day. It'll get you through the portal period. It gets you through spring ball. It gets you through the whole year. And then when that period is over, if you like it, and we think you'll like it, we think you'll love it because, you get information that you can trust. And that's what we pride ourselves on. Like, we're going to be accurate. We're going to be reliable. We aren't going to gas you up. We aren't going to gas you up. Promise you that. So come on home. Like Adam Shepardson. Adam was like, Sam, does that deal work if you've already had an account and forgot to renew? Would I need a new email? Nope. Adam, come on home, man. You don't need a new email. Just click that link. Sign back up. Come on home. Come on home. You don't need a new email. There you go. So at any rate, we got a lot to drop still tonight. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to get to some linebacker notes. We're going to get to some defensive line notes. We know that we got at least a few. We got a couple more. We got a couple more guys that we know are on the horizon. one that is you're gonna be like, okay, we like that. One we're gonna like, okay, yeah, I like that one. And then we'll see what else they're able to add to it. There you go. That's Dennis from the OC right there. I know who that is. That's Dennis from the OC. See, Dennis, I hope you're enjoying Paramount Plus. See, Dennis is with me. Dennis is with us he's on the site, he's on the radio. He's at U of M Club in Ann Arbor. See, I know who that is. See, you got people who are with us on a whole bunch of different things. So I appreciate you, Dennis. So anyway. That's right. See, I know the people because they come up and they'll say, "Hey, I'm so and so." So I try to put names with faces or names with monikers, so I can do that. At any rate, folks, that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Recruiting Insider. We'll be back tomorrow. We got the football breakdown. I got bored just hitting me right now. It's like, Sam, we got film to break down, man. We got film to. There we go. Oh man, Adam. See, this is Vance Beffers, man. This is Vance's guy. He said, man, I love it. Hey, Adam, that's my guy. That's my guy. Love you, Adam. Welcome home. Welcome home, Adam. Welcome back. Welcome back to TMI. Appreciate you. Appreciate the love. That's how we need you guys to show the love. Come with us over on TMI. We got a lot still coming. Again, 75% off. If you're a subscriber, tell all your friends about it. Tell them get 75% off. It is only good until midnight, and then the deal is over. It is the best deal of the year. There'll be I'd be lying to you if I told you there wouldn't be other deals. There will be other deals, but it won't be this deal. This is the best deal of the year. So if you miss this one, you missed the best deal of the year. All right. So take advantage of it. And we hope to see you over on the MichiganInsider.com. We hope to be able to announce what we're doing on signing day. We're putting the finishing, hopefully be able to sign the agreement for our signing day special. And we hope that, we will have a lot of special guests that are officially aligned with the program that you see on the sideline on Saturdays, winning games, beating Ryan Day. We hope that we have all of them lined up. So there you go. The B type in between time, folks. We appreciate you. Thanks for showing the love. And we got a lot still to come later on tonight over on the MichiganInsider.com. So be sure to join us over there. Until then, thanks for watching another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider.